time tested, well invested, delivered as requested. High Priest Kwatamani, Supreme Soothsayer, Soul Seer, Spiritual Healer, Revealer, and Chief Elder of the Kwatamani First Genesis Tribe. The oldest, longest sustained holistic living example of purely raw and living, plant fuel consuming family community order known. Over half a century, generation after generation, and still going strong.
All due praise, thanks, and appreciation to the sacred ancestral soulful essence of who we be within the glory of masculine and feminine energy most supreme, forwarding us, man, he and she, into this opportunity to grow and glow and flow within divine order.
Is this the Genesis we've been waiting for?
Yeah, and I look back and I remember that trail. I remember meeting a fork. I remember seeing so many meet that fork before the I. They made it very clear to I that there are so many who will meet that fork in the road after the I. The decision that the I had to make was, which direction do the I wish, want, desire? And it is extremely important that the I make the correct decision. We have to have a greater vision beyond self-asserted individualism. Then I looked to the left and I looked to the right. And I realized that, whoa, there is a centerfold. A centerfold that is neither left nor right. A centerfold that is a whole soul essence of life. When I looked left, there was this parallel. And this parallel had glory around it. It had all kinds of attractions. And when I peeped in that direction behind the facade, then I saw a lot of toxic reaction. Conflict, confusion, and chaos was at its peak, I thought, until I looked to the right. And when I looked to the right, I saw a toxic parallel dressed as order. It was order, the order of disorder. I saw all kinds of happenings going on. The feminine was like she was buck wild, gone absolute crazy, talking about counting the bodies that she's going to gap her legs open to and share whatever she had come to think of as her glory.
Now hear this, my kin, been rapping this rap since who knows when. They told us deceptions way back then, that she's the birthplace of sin. Now let this sink in. I was a child, but I had sense. Was not easy to convince. I asked a simple question, innocent as could be. Didn't she birth exactly what he put into she? If it was sin put in, wouldn't sin come out? That's when they started to shout. Just believe, believe, believe what we say about Eve.
Looking to the right, looking to the left. One side had a masculine version of this, the other side had a feminine version of this. Any way the I looked at it, what the I saw was a front, fake, and pretentious vibration of toxic disorder. And then those two were meeting separate but equal. And with them meeting separate but equal on that fork, and I began to realize that, hey, this is trauma. From post-traumatic syndromes, and what I had better do is speed on. So looking at the left and looking at the right made it very clear that the I had met a fork in the road that had a deviant kind of twist and turn in it to confuse one. So that when one thinks one is going forward, they go left. When they think they're going forward, they go right. Back into the toxic parallel, a downward spiral. And I give supreme thanks, praise, and appreciation for following that most supreme, unseen, soulful essence of who I be. and making the correct decision to continue along the life-affirming line of divine order. And when I look back now, and I look at those who we must encounter, the big question is, wow, how are we going to get each and every soul who has to walk this journey, a soul journey of decision making, how are we going to get them to make the right decision and come into the soulful essence of who he and she be, so we can go forward and multiply divine order in a whole different parallel, a divine parallel of thought and reasoning and action. If we go into analyzing the historical, most folks are going to become lost and say, well, that was then and this is now. That's the mirage, where one cannot actually look to see the direction that one is going, so one will make the mistake of following a pathway into the toxic disorder.
Even as a child I saw it well. Abomination, violation of universal law. The self-made man is the flaw. Monotheistically degrading she, placing she under he in some false claim of supremacy. Hexed by his own God complex. That's cause he never knew she delivered too. As he is birthed by she, he is marked by the nature of energy. Ejaculated into femininity, and the lower and lesser state he did ejaculate.
Will seal his own fate.
Before I can begin to teach and explain and try to do my level best to give directions for those to go to that point and say, holler, no, this direction, don't go there, don't go there. The very first thing that I came to realize is this. Children learn by example and not by words alone. The second thing is a person is a product of his and her environment. Therefore, the nature of energy that one has been groomed and conditioned to consume will determine how one sees from their eyes, depending on which parallel one is within. You can say, I love you in this parallel. And what it means in this parallel is, hey, I want to lay down with you for a few minutes and get this groove on. There's no way possible that divine order can manifest within that toxic parallel to the left or that toxic parallel to the right, which is actually the same old, just a disguise, a mirage to make one feel like one or the other is your choice. Some people make a choice coming to the parallel of he and decide he want to be a she. He want to be something other than all of that. Some make a choice going into that other parallel and decide she want to be a he. And whether it's he deciding to be a she or she decide to be a he, inside that parallel, it's all good.
War torn, bitter scorn born of a warring nature sworn to curse and condemn her and him, tearing his manhood limb to limb, poisoning a family tree, spreading his toxic nature of energy through the womb of she. How and whoever it be, the warlord captured femininity. Where is compassion, warm love, and affection in the midst of this vicious spiritual disconnection?
What happens to youth who's coming down the road headed for a pathway that should lead he or she into divine social, economic, family, community order, but having distractions to the left, distractions to the right, and all kind of mirror reflections that make it appear to be so attractive? What happens to that offspring deviating instead of taking a straight line into divine order? What are the factors that actually cause that to happen? And how did one actually get to that point in one's reasoning? The first thing first is to realize that man, he and she learn by example. That man, he and she must manifest the example in order to affect the generation next. So then I realized that, well, that's exactly what the problem is. Because there are many beings, birth and offsprings, giving the example of toxic disorder, giving them the example that they should follow the same parallel that they themselves rejected because he or she know that was not the correct pathway to go. Too little, too late. Because then, when offsprings are there, they think that that's what happened to I, but it won't happen to my child. And they send the child right back into the same parallel of thought and reasoning and action, expecting different results. And as we know, if you do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results, that absolutely is toxic insanity. And this is where that journey that Diana was talking about continue. Because every time someone ends up in one side of that toxic parallel or the other, they simply think that the other side of that parallel of toxic disorder is going to be better than this side. Because, you know, the grass looked greener on the other side. What one failed to realize is that one is looking at a paint job or artificial turf, because it is impossible for any self-deifying being to manifest divine order unless he or she go through a massive detox, purging, and healing process. Go right back to that center pole, and instead of going to that left, that deviant vibration of the right, or any other pathway, one simply decide to go through the grind and all those elements that's necessary to get that toxicity off of you, to detox it, to purge, so that you can heal into a sight that will allow you to see forward into divine order.
I miss your touch, missed you so much, deep down in the soul of I. Genesis of divine oneness.
Some say, what difference do it make? And since you only go around once, why waste all that time? Why not just go to the left or to the right and just enjoy whatever it is at the time? Yeah, and I say more power to you. What? We, those who know full well why they are on this earth, why we were birthed, why we have a divine, natural, innate duty, obligation, responsibility to go forward and multiply the essence of divine order into every offspring and vibration of the generation next, so that we can continue a whole soul-to-soul movement. Because we have to birth the carriers of the souls of divine order.
What is put in, come back out again for all to see. Exposing the nature of energy nurtured by she.
And she will feel it emotionally to tell.
Even as a child I saw it well.
Realizing that, oh, this journey is going to lead to the left or to the right. And the best thing that I can do as an inner soulful soul essence of he or she is find a unified bond of oneness, seen and unseen, where that movement takes us directly into the continuation, the holistic living way of life that breathes, seeds, and feeds divine social, economic, family, community order, and that upholds and maintains the principles of divine consumption of the fruits of the tree of life. Come into full recognition that we don't have to get caught up in habits, attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs that actually push us toward conflict, confusion, and chaos. That is an absolute necessity that we forward into consumption of whole life energy. We know for a fact that the first food chain of Mother Earth is the greenery, the green leafy vegetables. We know that the fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, herbs, and spice is the divine essence of fuel for humanity. And that anything else is going to cause mutation and degeneration mentally, physically, and spiritually. And the proof is in the pudding. If one decides to look back historically, to the left, or to the right, and one will see the various levels and degrees of toxic disorder that has manifested based on the nature of energy that one consumes. Remember, how you think, how you act, and how you behave is going to be dictated by the nature of energy that you consume. Remember this, you have to go through the fullness of detoxing and purging to heal. Therefore, you're going to keep certain kinds of past pattern attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs because that has been encoded in you.
So it is, so it be. Obviously there's a need for corrective action, whole life satisfaction. Mama in the midst of contractions, her children divided in opposing factions as she labored to deliver a new breed to weed out the genetically modified self-made seed. War torn, bitter scorn born of a warring nature sworn to curse and condemn her and him, tearing his manhood limb to limb, poison in a family tree, spreading his toxic nature of energy through the womb of she. How and whoever it be, the warlord captured femininity.
Warlord manifestation worship and intruded and invaded upon it, used them as they wish, and they breed that nature of energy into that next population. Invade it, intrude it, rip, strip, and tear it apart so that it becomes a replica, a carbon copy of that left zone of toxic disorder or that right zone of toxic disorder. Hope you're following what I'm saying.
Hey, Genesis of divine one. When she gives voice to her choice, what will it be? What will it be? Will it be the nature of he who defiles her femininity? Or will she select he who can divinely guide and protect she into the glory of her divinity? Which nature of masculinity can make it real, bring the zeal to detox, purge, and heal? This is the Genesis we've been waiting for.
And when we make a decision that we're going to follow the most supreme, the most high essence of life and supreme love, when we make that decision that our focus is to be about the holistic living, resurrecting energy forwarded from the most supreme seen and unseen essence of masculine and feminine energy, and that we're going to give glory to our presence as man, he, and she by following divine order, we have made a decision that gives us the only opportunity to experience the magnificent gifts of life. Any other direction has no alternative but to lead one into the suffering, grueling, misery, aches, and pains. And no matter how you front, fake, and pretend it, that status quo vibration that one has actually learned to glorify, uphold, and maintain is the very same parallel that's causing one that suffering, grueling, misery, aches, and pains from the crib to the grave, and passing that on to the next generation and going out with a bang. Now, sometimes when I am speaking, someone says, wow, when you say it, it sounds so easy. It sounds so simple. All you have to do is walk the pathway. I say, oh, no. You got to realize the load that you're toting and that you cannot enter divine order with all that toxic debris hanging all over you. The narrow pathway into divine order will not allow you to pass. The stank and the funk, that death-consuming mindset, none of those vibrations will be able to pass through. Some people from times past who have not actually comprehended or understood what the ancient ancestral priesthoods were talking about have declared it as heaven. And they don't know where it would be, so they put it up in the air somewhere. But you got to wait until you die before going there. And then they look at those parallels that they're walking in to the left or to the right, and they call it hell, but it's hell on earth. But then you glorify it and put a little shine on it, and etc. Throw a religion on it, get a religious pattern, put you a deity there, and say that's what you worship, and call glory and all of that stuff, and that make it righteous. And you actually end up suffering the greatest misery as a soul. Now that self-deified mind gets its glory for a moment. No ands, if, and buts about it. It gets its glory. I got money, 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 money. I'm able to do this and that. I'll buy this and that. And when you look and see that sorrowful, miserable being in the long run, they're so frustrated, aggravated, irritated. They want to hurt somebody. And actually, when you really analyze it, that's exactly what happens. People spend a lot of time hurting each other. Mentally, physically, spiritually, all the above. And there is no other way for that mindset to function. Suffering, grueling, misery, aches, and pains manifest. Conflict, confusion, and chaos. And insanity is what manifests within the mindset of those beings. Now, some would say, well, who do you think you are, Mr. Righteous? How did you actually walk through that pathway? I'll tell you very bluntly. What has to be clear by the sacred few of the few is that either parallel, the parallel that identifies heaven, or that one that signifies hell, the realization is when one is moving into holistic living consciousness, one is a soul journey movement. And that soul journey movement is eternal. And we got to get it done right now, right here, up on this earth. A holistic living, social, economic, family, communal movement into divine order. Hey, it ain't no joke. You have to make that decision. Sometimes they talk about manhood, speaking of the I and I. And you got to be a man. You got to be able to impress, to dress the way someone want to see you. If you want to get past this or that, you got to be able to wear these kind of shoes. You got to be able to shine. You got to be able to have a pocket full of money. You got to be able to show your sex appeal. And immediately what the I and I say to the being, thank you so much for letting the I and I know that you are a vessel of that toxic parallel left or right.
Where is compassion, warm, loving affection in the midst of this vicious spiritual disconnection? Sacred few must choose a new direction. Whole life transformation, greener solar conscious revelation.
As above, so below.
Every seed that grows from this life-giving tree bears fruit holistically.
Let truth be told, masculine and feminine energy, two parts to one whole.
And this is the path that one has to walk to even be able to identify how to move forward. So when someone say, it looks so easy, it's like, oh no. It only looks easy when you're fantasizing or in a delusionary version of it, and you sitting and you coming up with some kind of false morality that do not require holistic living action to make you move forward. This is why I said, we will do this, but we're going to have to do it inch by inch by inch. Each one getting to the point of recognize the first things first is to deal with the inner core of one's own being, to go through the necessary detoxing and purging and healing, to look at those things that one must correct within one's own being, to cease and desist from those particular vibrations, those things that do not allow the being to really come face to face with the nature of energy that he or she is indulging in. For example, if one is born within a holistic living, divine, social, economic, family, communal movement, that makes them there. So they get really, really, really uppity. Not realizing that, oh no, you're not their offspring unless you come into the wholeness of your mental, physical, and spiritual realities, divine order. So one has got to cease that delusion. In other words, regardless of one's status or profile within the movement of a holistic living process, There is no point in time that anyone is exempt from the requirements. You have to live in divine order, and you got to maintain the principles, morals, and values that has been very beautifully laid out for man, he and she, through the principles of Ma'at. And you got to recognize that your karma will be your direction. And therefore, unless you put a focus into a forward direction, you will deviate. We're talking about the fact that you are driving your own direction by how you behave and how you interface with life. As far as Dan and I look right now, the challenge is putting together that next generation. The challenge has been to put the mother spirit in order, which is extremely difficult because the mother spirit is the first line of attack in war, and we're in a spiritual war and have been in a spiritual war for a very long time. So to get her back to her simple reasoning that, number one, you are the birthplace of man, he and she. Whatever you're thinking, however way you behave, is going to be the first effect against any offspring. And that he has to come to comprehend that unless he take his natural and innate responsibility to be about learning and teaching and learning, guidance, protection, so that he can give guidance and protection of his own masculine being inside her womb and break out of that toxic reasoning of macho maleism. That we have to be humble, respectful beings, recognizing that we're two parts of one whole, and at the same time we can be firm and steadfast within the principles of divine order. Yeah, I just felt the vibration, the ancestral vibration of deep appreciation for the expression that's coming from the inner core of the I and I. All of a sudden, rain started in the midst of heat. And within that rain, it sounded so exact, like a lot of beings were getting together and clapping. Like we have waited a long time for someone to take their responsibility that has been assigned to you.
Even as a child, I saw it well.
Now, the I and I have to get those offsprings into becoming a branch of this holistic living tree of life. And those branches have to meet up with other beings who will have to synchronize with a holistic living way of life so that he and she can go forward and multiply generations upon generations upon generations of new family, community, order, beings. It's raining on me now. I'm going to take that just like that. I don't know what, I'm just going to, hey, it's beyond the physical. Oh, we're going to just do it just like that.
Is this the Genesis?